In every age of human civilization, there comes a moment when money begins to reveal its true nature. A moment when the numbers printed on paper or displayed on digital screens no longer reflect real wealth, real power, or real security. Instead, they become symbols of trust, belief, and illusion. What happens when that trust breaks? What happens when the illusion cracks? And more importantly, what happens when a nation built on the world's most dominant currency quietly prepares to rewrite the very value of money itself? For decades, the United States has stood at the center of global finance. The dollar became the world's reserve currency not just because of military power, political influence, or economic scale, but because the world believed in it, believed it was stable, believed it was backed by strength, believed it would always be honored. But beneath all that belief lies a quiet truth few people are willing to confront. Trust can weaken, value can shift, and systems can reset. The world today is entering a period unlike anything we have seen before. Economies are stretched, governments are drowning in obligations they can't meet, and currencies everywhere are feeling the weight of relentless printing, borrowing, and inflation. The United States, despite its influence, is no exception. Its debt has crossed levels once thought impossible, accelerating with a momentum that no political party wants to stop, and no government agency is capable of reversing. Over $37 trillion each, one borrowed, spent, and piled onto the next, creating a mountain that grows every second. Economists debate solutions, politicians offer promises, analysts propose plans, but the arithmetic remains brutally simple. This debt can't be paid in full, not now, not ever. And history shows that when a debt grows beyond what a nation can manage, the nation doesn't pay the debt back. It changes the value of the debt quietly, strategically, often without admitting it. In 1933, during the Great Depression, the United States faced a crisis that threatened the entire financial system. People were losing faith, banks were collapsing, gold was fleeing the country, and the government, facing rising debt, shrinking revenue, and vanishing confidence, made a decision that reshaped the entire global economy. It seized private gold, revalued it, and devalued the dollar. Overnight, the government erased a massive portion of its debt burdens without paying a single cent. Savers lost purchasing power, debts lost real value, and the dollar was reborn smaller in strength, but stronger in control. That moment wasn't just a policy change, it was a financial reset. And here's the truth most people never hear. Resets are not rare. They happen throughout history, in every empire, in every era, in almost every major government. Rome reduced the silver content in its coins. Britain abandoned the gold standard to escape economic collapse. Post-war nations devalued their currencies to restart growth. Hyperinflation, revaluation, currency conversions. These are the tools of governments when debts rise too high and confidence sinks too low. When the numbers on paper become too big, the easiest solution is to change the meaning of the numbers. Today, the conditions for a reset are quietly aligning again, but this time, the world is far more complex. Technology has changed how money moves. Cryptocurrencies challenge traditional power. Gold is returning as a global anchor. Central banks are preparing digital currencies, and geopolitical tensions are reshaping alliances, trade, and strategic reserves. For the first time since the mid-20th century, nations are openly questioning the stability of the US dollar, not because the United States is weak, but because the global environment is shifting faster than the dollar can adapt. Imagine a system where the world's leading currency begins facing competition not from a single rival but from dozens. Competing digital currencies, gold-backed instruments, regional payment alliances, cross-border settlement systems, and decentralized networks that don't answer to governments at all. In such a world, maintaining dollar dominance requires more than military strength or economic size. It requires confidence. It requires credibility. And that credibility is shaken every time the debt climbs higher, inflation rises faster, or political conflict disrupts financial decisions. Now imagine being inside the halls of power, inside the institutions that watch these trends unfold. Imagine being the people who know what happens when trust declines, when investors question stability, when global markets sense weakness. They would know the lessons of history. They would know that the most powerful tool a government possesses is not its army, not its trade power, not its diplomacy, but its ability to shape the value of money itself. They cannot cut spending enough to fix the debt. They cannot raise taxes enough to fix the debt. They cannot grow the economy fast enough to fix the debt. A conventional solution will not solve an unconventional problem, but a reset, subtle, structured, strategic can. And so the world watches the quiet signs. Central banks buying gold at the fastest pace in more than half a century. Nations forming alternative trade systems that bypass the dollar. Government institutions exploring digital assets. Regulations emerging that do not eliminate cryptocurrency but carefully frame it. Gold reserves being revalued on internal accounting models. Market analysts warning that the current financial architecture cannot survive the next decade without major transformation. These signs are not random. They form a pattern that looks remarkably similar to every major monetary shift in history. In such a shift, The government realigns the value of assets in a way that strengthens its balance sheet while weakening the real weight of its liabilities. If the price of gold rises, government reserves rise in value. If digital strategic assets gain official recognition, the government's ability to restructure obligations expands. If the dollar resets at a new purchasing power, debts shrink relative to national assets. These changes do not require announcements. They do not require permission. They happen quietly, through pricing, policy, accounting adjustments, and market behavior. But the effect on ordinary people is enormous, because in every monetary shift, value moves, wealth shifts, purchasing power transforms. The people who understand the shift early position themselves intelligently. The people who don't lose without ever realizing why. When currency loses value, savings weaken. When strategic assets rise, those who hold them gain. When governments adjust financial structures, the public experiences it not as a reset, but as inflation, reform, modernization, or economic stabilization. The terminology changes, but the reality does not. The same pattern repeats. The system resets while the public experiences the aftermath. Now picture an ordinary family. No political power, no insider information, no influence on global decisions. They save money in a bank account. They trust the currency. They believe their income will buy tomorrow what it buys today. But as the reset unfolds, prices creep upward. Their money buys less, their expenses rise, their salary stays the same, their savings shrink. They feel pressured but cannot explain it. They sense instability but cannot identify the cause. They wonder why everything feels harder while the news insists everything is under control. And then, one day, the shift becomes obvious, but by then, the new system has already taken shape. This is how financial transitions occur. Slowly at first, then suddenly, and always with the same outcome. Those prepared adapt, and those unaware fall behind. But resets are not merely destructive, they also create opportunity. Every financial transformation in history has produced new winners, individuals and nations who understand the direction of the shift and position themselves accordingly. When Britain left the gold standard, exporters thrived. When the dollar was devalued under Roosevelt, gold holders gained. When digital currencies emerged, early adopters multiplied their wealth. When inflation rises, hard assets outperform currency. When currency resets occur, strategic and scarce resources become dynasties. That is why understanding the cycle is essential. Because history does not repeat by accident. It repeats because human incentives repeat. Governments respond the same way to debt. Markets respond the same way to uncertainty. Investors respond the same way to opportunity. And ordinary people respond the same way to fear. The cycle continues, century after century, nation after nation. Now consider this moment, not decades ago, not centuries ago, but now. The world is fractured, economies are fragile, technology accelerates every trend. Money moves faster than governments can regulate. And the financial system built in the mid-20th century is carrying pressures it was never designed to handle. The possibility of a global shift is no longer theoretical. It is mathematical, structural, historical, and increasingly inevitable. But shifts do not announce themselves. Governments do not declare resets. Markets do not ring alarms. Instead, the world changes quietly. Policies adjust. Reserves shift. Strategies evolve. And people only notice when the effects reach their daily lives. One day, headlines begin to appear. Rising gold prices, digital asset regulations, central bank digital currency trials, changes in market pricing, adjustments in accounting values. People see these as unrelated stories, but they are not unrelated. They are steps, pieces of a larger transformation. And in that transformation lies the question every person must confront. If the world rewrites the value of money, where will you stand? On the side that loses value, or on the side that gains strength? No government wants panic. No institution wants instability. But no system built on unsustainable foundations can last forever. And when the moment of transition comes, the world will divide between those who understand the shift and those who remain blind to it. History shows that every financial reset is both an ending and a beginning. An ending of an old system burdened by debt, imbalance, and instability. And a beginning of a new era defined by different rules, different values, and different priorities. We are living in the final chapter of one financial era and the opening chapter of the next, not because of conspiracy or secrecy, but because no system, no matter how powerful, can outrun mathematical reality. The debt is too large, the currency is too stretched, the pressures are too enormous. A transformation is not just likely, it is necessary. And when it happens, it will not feel like a dramatic collapse or a sudden explosion. It will feel like a gradual shift, a slow change in purchasing power, a silent alteration in asset values, a quiet reshaping of financial confidence. People will look back years later and realize the reset happened not in one moment, but across 1,000 small decisions, policies, and market movements. Those who understand history will see the signals early. Those who ignore it will only see the consequences. The story of money is the story of power. The story of power is the story of trust. And the story of trust is the story of cycles rising, falling, resetting, and rising again. Today, we stand at the edge of the next great cycle. And whether the world is ready or not, the shift has already begun.